On behalf of the Religious Studies program here at Utah Valley University, it's my pleasure to welcome you here to the 2017 Mormon Studies Conference. This year's theme, as many of you know, is multicultural Mormonism, and it's my pleasure to introduce two very important scholars and writers in these areas. Before I introduce our panelists, again, I want to thank all those associated with this event, notably Boyd Peterson and Courtney Burns and Gabriel Toscano and other students and volunteers who helped both with the conference and with the reception last night, which was terrific, lots of fun. So thanks to everyone who helps in organizing this event. My name is Brian Birch. I'm the director of the Religious Studies program and the Center for the Study of Ethics, and have the privilege of working with some of the best people in this field of study. So I feel very honored. Our first presenter this morning is Janan Graham-Russell, who is a writer and graduate of the Howard University School of Divinity. Her research focuses on womanist theology and Mormonism and identity formation in racial communities. Her work has been featured in two books, Mormon Feminism, Essential Writings, and A Book of Mormons. She's also written for the Atlantic and other publications. She hopes to continue her research where she has just been accepted to the graduate school at Harvard University, where she'll be studying religious studies. So congratulations. That's a terrific honor. And we welcome you, Janan. Our second presenter is Paul Reeve, who is a professor and the director of graduate studies in the history department at the University of Utah. Paul teaches courses there in Utah history, Mormon history, and the history of the American West. His book, Religion of a Different Color, Race and the Mormon Struggle for Whiteness, received the Mormon History Association's Best Book Award, the John Whitmer Historical Association's Smith Pettit Best Book Award, and the Utah State Historical Society's Francis Armstrong Madsen Best History Book Award. And I can just say that all of these awards are well-deserving, and Paul's research in this area is definitive and foundational for the discussion of the history of race and Mormonism. And so, Paul, congratulations. And we're honored to have you here. So each of them will speak back to back, and then we'll have a few minutes for questions and further discussion. So please join me in welcoming Janan.
Good morning. So first, I wanted to thank the organizers of this event. I wanted to especially thank Boyd and Courtney. I know that sometimes it can be hard to reach me, and I'm pretty elusive, so thank you for your continued efforts in reaching out and making sure everything got organized. Before I begin, I wanted to read a prose poem to give context to my remarks on Black bodies and reconciliation. It is entitled Blackness by Jamaica Kincaid. How soft is the blackness as it falls. It falls in silence, and yet it is deafening, for no other sound except the blackness falling can be heard. The blackness falls like soot from a lamp with an untrimmed wick. The blackness is visible, and yet it is invisible, for I see that I cannot see it. The blackness fills up a small room, a large field, an island, my own being. The blackness cannot bring me joy, but I am often made glad in it. The blackness cannot be separated from me, but I often can stand outside of it. The blackness is not the air, though I breathe it. The blackness is not the earth, though I walk on it. The blackness is not water or food, though I drink and eat it. The blackness is not my blood, though it flows through my veins. The blackness enters my many-tiered spaces, and soon the significant word and event recede and eventually vanish. In this way, I am annihilated, and my form becomes formless, and I am absorbed into a vastness of free-flowing matter. In the blackness, then, I have been erased. I can no longer say my own name. I can no longer point to myself and say I. In the blackness, my voice is silent. First, then, I have been my individual self, carefully banishing randomness from my existence. Then I am swallowed up in the blackness, so I am one with it. When talking about black and blackness, it is important to recognize the differences across historical and cultural lines. In Becoming Black, Creating Black Identity in the African Diaspora, author Michelle M. Wright identifies 3 types of the categorical black other. The first defines individuals brought into the home space of the colonizer, African Americans. The second, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, I have such a soft voice. Thank you so much. The second defines a third space where neither white nor black bodies are understood to be at home. The third is identified as the black other being colonized in their own home, i.e., Black indigenous Africans. Each of these groups and subgroups have their own unique histories and cultures, which make it difficult to summarize a singular black culture. While there is a wealth of information that can be stated about the impact of external colonialism and the socio-political exchanges between black indigenous groups on the African continent, the Afro-Atlantic, and white Europeans, my remarks today focus on black identity in the American landscape and the fragmentation of black bodies within its institutions. Specifically, black identity in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. In the interpretation of the Curse of Cain and the subsequent implementation of the priesthood and temple restrictions, individuals of black African descent in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints went through a process of becoming black within a Mormon imagination. This imagination engaged prevailing attitudes in American discourse, which drew strict lines of demarcation between a delightful white self and an inherently guilty black other. Tied into the formation of a Mormon imagination of race and ethnicity is the concept of a literal lineage from one of the 12 tribes of Israel. As sociologist Armin Moss notes, this designation was a part of an implied arrangement of various contemporary peoples by divine plan into ancient lineages from most favored to least favored. Descendants of Ephraim and Cain stood at opposite ends of the spectrum. The concept of Israelite lineage played its role in the development of what womanist theologian Kelly Brown Douglas calls the Anglo-Saxon myth in the United States. The conflation of an Israelite lineage and the Anglo-Saxon myth gave rise to a theo-ideology, which recognized white European bodies and whiteness, or systems that sustain white supremacy, as the divinely inspired self. To be made in the image of God, there's not a lot of room up here, was to be made into the image of the white body. This identity was contingent on the creation of the black body as its opposite, dangerous, unnatural, and at times demonic. In recent history, we have an example of this idea of the black body as demonic in thinking about the case of Darren Wilson. Darren Wilson was the police officer who shot Michael Brown in Missouri. When asked about the incident between himself and Michael Brown, he, quote, stated that Michael Brown looked like a demon. That line of thinking and the imagery it invokes isn't new. It is a way to dehumanize and legitimize forms of violence acted upon black bodies that needed to be confined and controlled. Even diving into the pseudosciences with the creation of drapetomania, described as a, quote, mental illness that caused enslaved black people to flee. Going back to earlier historical periods, the concept of free black bodies being in opposition to standards of virtue and purity is not lost in 19th century political and social thought. In regards to Mormonism, while Joseph Smith campaigned on an anti-slavery platform, he once warned that abolition would, quote, set loose upon the world a community of people who might, peradventure, overrun our country and violate the most sacred principles of human society, chastity, and virtue, and advocated for the relocation of free blacks. While he certainly was not alone in these beliefs among white Christian religious leaders in the 19th century, the priesthood and temple restrictions did not originate during his lifetime, with at least one black man, Elijah Abel, holding the priesthood. It is important to recognize the lens through which early LDS church leaders interpreted relationships between white and black individuals. This lens shaped a Mormon imagination of theological difference. Black saints were not only decidedly black because of forced political lines, but even further, within a Mormon imagination, there was a divine explanation for that difference, which precluded exaltation. Extending beyond socio-political definitions imposed on black bodies, the priesthood and temple restrictions created a corporal theological dilemma for Black Latter-day Saints, unable to participate in the saving ordinances which would ensure exaltation. The restrictions redefined the relationship of black saints to the church as an institution, to other members, and themselves. In the church, but not of the church, black bodies were in conflict of what we know of the creation, that is, all are alike unto God. In Black Skin, White Masks, sociologist Frantz Fanon describes his first encounter with a white gaze through the eyes of a child. Look, a Negro. It was an external stimulus that flicked over me as I passed by. I made a tight smile. Look, a Negro. It was true. It amused me. Look, a Negro. The circle was drawing a bit tighter. I made no secret of my amusement. Mama, see the Negro. I am frightened. Frightened. Now they were beginning to be afraid of me. I made up my mind to laugh myself to tears, but laughter had become impossible. And the occasion arose when I had to meet the white man's eyes. An unfamiliar weight burdened me. Fanon spoke to the disorientation and fragmentation that occurs when one's bodily schema is challenged and distorted beyond comprehension. It was a gaze he internalized, a gaze tied to a past that neither white nor black bodies had escaped from. Latter-day Saints exist on a similar plane, bending and breaking around historical narratives of a racialized self and other. Bruce R. McConkie in 1978 admonished, "Forget everything that I have said, or what President Brigham Young or President George Buchanan or whomsoever has said in days past that is contrary to the present revelation. We spoke with a limited understanding and without the light and knowledge that now has come into the world." As the study of systems of domination has taught us, as much as we may hope that one would forget, structures that upheld racial difference are not easily forgotten. Without a sustained reflection on its impact, its effects reveal themselves in implicit and explicit ways. It is in this space that black saints are often forced to negotiate our identity in relation to faith and religious practice. Am I black first and Mormon second? Or am I Mormon first and black second? The answer can mean the difference between social acceptance and social rejection by the larger community. As a Mormon, the restrictions are now part of my identity. It is my black body that was believed to be cursed. But to internalize that means an annihilation of the self. As a black person, the effects of ethnic suffering challenge predominant cultural ideas on the atonement that have yet to answer what it means to love someone who participates in a system that is killing you and people who look like you. This is the challenge. To reconcile the black body within a Mormon imagination in a way that promotes healing and wholeness. At the same time, deconstructs narratives that do not recognize the black body in its entirety. If we look to reconcile black bodies, this effort must decenter whiteness in conservative and progressive dialogues. In Mormon studies on race, we often pursue the crucial task of critically engaging whiteness in its manifestation within LDS culture and theology, but not the bodies of those relegated to the status of other. We talk about faith and doubt. told myself I'd get through this. Okay. We talk about faith and doubt within an institution that revels in prophecy, but disregard identity construction among those marginalized by that prophecy. Representation, not in pursuit of managing a quota or through a sense of guilt, is a counter-narrative to the historical construction of race and lineage within a Mormon imagination that rendered Black bodies invisible. Speaking to Black Latter-day Saints, sorry, this includes seeing yourselves. Okay. Whew, I got this, all right. Something very curious happens when the images of the divine that reside in holy places don't look like you. When the restrictions have been lifted, but the revelatory voices can continue to be espoused from white Western lips. When you're told that you should marry someone with a similar culture, knowing the interconnectedness between culture, ethnicity, and race. Microaggressions turn into macroaggressions. But you're not like other Black people. Oh, I have a Black friend in the ward. There's a difference between these two areas we've served in. The other area is more ghetto. It's more ghetto. This area has more educated people. When you're called a nigger in the temple, one may begin to wonder, was I cursed? Look, a Negro. It was an external stimulus that flicked over me as I passed by. I made a tight smile. Look, a Negro. It was true. It amused me. Look, a Negro. The circle was drawing a bit tighter. I made no secret of my amusement. Mama, see the Negro. See the difference. I titled my remarks A Balm in Gilead after an African-American spiritual. The balm is the hope found in Christ, whose life and ministry provided an alternate vision for those at the margins. A vision of healing, a vision of wholeness, a vision of hope. It is in this alternate vision that reconciliation can begin and be sustained. Because when you see people as God sees us, and seeing all of us, it is truly transformative. Thank you.